Okay, so you and I have been fortunate enough to watch Justin Jefferson up close. Like, we've seen it up close time and time again for 6 years. He's going into his seventh year, right?
Yeah.
And last week when we were at joint practices, we are, 15 feet away from the first team offense watching them operate.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this sounds silly, but I said to you then, and I want to repeat on here, I feel like he looks a little bigger. And as crazy as it sounds, I feel like he looks a little faster and he looks a little crisper. I bring all that up because this Mike Silver article came out this week in The Athletic where Jefferson talked to him, national writer, and basically admitted last year was really hard, didn't complain about it, said he just put his head down and went to work. Talked about seems he's excited for Kyler. But the interesting piece for me was he felt like his clout is under attack. That the
Yeah.
rest of the league doesn't see him as the clear number one guy anymore, and he's out to prove them wrong. I don't know. I think we might be in for the sort of Justin Jefferson year that everybody goes, "Oh, I didn't know it could go to this level."
Yeah, that article was pretty telling on the broadcast when he was in the preseason game, that first preseason game when he was mic'd up with us. PA Paul Allen even made the comment. He's like, Justin, like look at you down there with your biceps. Like, what is going on? I mean, everybody's sort of noticing how much bigger he is. I mean, it's not significant. He's not Megatron, obviously, but
Right.
he's put on a little bit of weight in a good way. And yeah, man, I think the way I've seen the way the league through the Pro Bowl voting looks at players, and it's so stupid. It's so
Mm-hmm.
stupid. Here's where I think a lot of people don't understand that you're so busy as a professional football player that you're not watching a lot of other games. The players don't watch the league as closely as the fans do, and certainly the beat writers. So a lot of these guys will steal takes from everybody else. And if there is this narrative, because people look at Justin Jefferson's stats from last year completely out of context of who was throwing the football, how discombobulated our offense was, how ridiculous the whole situation was. And they'll be like, well, Justin Jefferson just had a down year and he's not very good anymore. I'm like, because you're not watching the games. You're not understanding what the context is. I'm with you. I think a bigger body, he's just as fast. He's just as crispy as he's always been.
I think he's
And
crispier.
crispier. And he's going to have a quarterback that we think is going to be much more competent and consistent about getting him the football.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I do think that we are looking at sort of a redemption year for him. And I would even say that based on what I think was going to happen with our offense in the run game and trying to avoid double teams and brackets and stuff, I think a lot of his big plays will happen on first down, which might kind of annoy some people because they're like, well, why aren't we running on first down? But those are kind of your opportunities to get the ball down the field when you know it's a little bit more predictable coverage. And I think those are the types Kyler will hit a few of those here and there and just kind of put everybody on notice. Like, you got to watch out for Justin Jefferson deep down the field on first down.
I think this season you could go anywhere with a prediction given the
Sure.
variables, the depth concern. Who knows how this quarterback thing is going to turn out? But I think the possibility that it's a special year it's there. I think there's a lot of things, I don't want to go on here and go, I think this is going to be this. And I think it's going to be because everybody in the comments will be like, oh, you're just such a pussy homer. And it's like, yeah, I understand that, but I'm just being honest. I mean, this has been one of the best defenses in football for a number of years. When the coach has had a full-time quarterback, they've won a bunch of games. The big X factors for me are, does this run game work and do we commit to it? Do we
Mm-hmm.
stick with it even when we don't want to stick with it? And can we stay healthy? Because if you start talking about a defense that ranks as high as this team has in EPA over the past couple seasons, and you talk about a wide receiver and this group of weapons led by that wide receiver at the top of his game at this level that we're seeing, and you can run the ball, I think there's a really, really, really high ceiling that I don't think anyone, like when you talk to the beat reporters at joint practice, I don't think anyone's comfortable yet coming out and staking their name on it and going, yo, this could go to the moon. But I'm hearing it, I'm seeing it, I'm feeling it. I think a lot of people in their mind go, there's a chance. They're just not ready to stick their name and reputation on it, right? They don't want to be Paul
Yeah.
Charchian saying Tom Brady's career is over, before he wins 5 more Super Bowls. They don't want to go big and then have everybody yell at him later.
Well, obviously, the caveat to all this is Kyler Murray and how does he fit with KOC's offense? I mean, obviously, that goes without saying. But the one statistic that I thought was, I don't know, a little interesting is when you look at 2024. So that was both Kyler's best year statistically in a quote unquote pro style offense. And that's also for us when Justin Jefferson had Sam Darnold and had one of his best seasons as well. The Arizona Cardinals in 2024, they in Kyler Murray, it was about Trey McBride, 100%. He was their number one target. How does that change with Kyler? Did Kyler only throw to Trey because that's what the offense was asking for? That's what Drew Petzing wanted, was a lot of targets to the tight end, or was that his comfort? Is that like who he trusts most of the time? Marvin Harrison Jr. was number 2 on that list. The number 1 wide receiver was the number 2 in targets. And he just didn't have a great year. I mean, he had 116 targets and 62 receptions. And I know that Marvin Harrison Jr., because I remember at that time, was getting lambasted for his poor route running, and it was not a good connection. So
Yeah.
We all know that that's going to be better and different for the way that he throws the ball and treats Justin Jefferson. The thing that I thought was kind of interesting, when you look at the yards per reception for Marvin Harrison Jr. and Justin Jefferson in the same year as Sam Darnold, were identical. 14.3 yards per reception. So it's as much as we give Kyler crap for being an underneath thrower, when he is targeting his wide receiver, he will get the ball down the field. And that's going to be very much the way that he's going to have to view Justin Jefferson. Is he's going to be your primary. I will put my house on the fact that TJ Hawkinson is not going to be the number one targeted receiver at the end of the season. It will be Justin Jefferson. And I do think that Kyler will be very comfortable getting him the ball down the field. Let's just hope that they can connect way more often than he did with Marvin Harrison Jr.
I mean, I will put my house on that. I like
Yeah.
all health aside, I will go all in on that. The guy who's behind Kyler, JJ, obviously a lot of conversation falls off of last week's preseason game. I don't,
Mm-hmm.
at the risk of having multiple over the top statements in one short podcast, I saw something Seifert said, kind of indicating this is potentially the biggest week of JJ McCarthy's career. And I can see that. I don't know. I think with the injury, I don't know if we've heard yet if he's going to play, how much he's going to play. But if he is going to play, I think that Miles Price miss became this symbolic, moment for the JJ experience that everything has gravitated towards and hurtled towards, and all the conversation have ran to this exact moment. And you got to want to bounce back from that. You got to be desperate. So if he is going to play, I see what Seifert's saying. This is a moment where you have to go out and be steady and be smooth. But I don't know where we're at on whether or not he plays, and you know, I don't know. I don't know what you think if he doesn't.
So as of right now, we're recording this in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know
Yep.
his health status. We don't know. There's been no indication about if the starters are going to play, I put that at 0%.
Yep.
How much of the solid number twos that are going to be on the 53-man roster, how much are they going to play? I would put that at a very low percentage. It's going to be a lot of 3s and 4s. So my thought and my theory behind all of it is like, why does JJ need to play? What does he need? What does he need to prove? I mean, let's pull this.
Prove?
But let's pull this out. Yes. What does he at this point in time? Does he really need a redemption game from the last game where I think I used the word haunting? Like that throw to Miles Price is going to haunt him for that game and that performance. And, I was talking about it maybe as just that game, but I kind of agree with Seifert, and it sounds like you kind of agree as well. Like that might haunt his whole preseason, that one throw. It might just be the microcosm to his whole career here with the Vikings. That being said, if he goes out there and throws for 250 and 3 touchdowns against the number 3s and 4s, what does that do? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't redeem him. It doesn't redeem. It's not like the coach is like, God dang, he figured it out.
But isn't the conversation about guys in the NFL bigger than just the coaches sometimes? I know for this team, for our team, it is about the coaches and what they think. But, I mean, one of the most true things in the NFL is if a guy doesn't work somewhere, we'll just wait till he gets into our ecosystem.
Yeah, they all have that ego and bravado. Yeah.
So although I agree with what you're saying, don't you think there's, and this isn't, you can tell me that's not why we do it. That's not why players make decisions. But isn't there, what do you have to prove? If you go out and you throw that, even if it's third teamers, I think there's an aspect of like, man, that was a rough moment. Everybody from the most unimportant local blogger to the most important national media member launched onto that throw and that performance. And with the whole world looking at you and criticizing you, you came out, took it, and put on a good performance regardless of who it was against. I do think that proves something. If you get, again, healthy, if you get that opportunity. I'm saying I don't know that it changes the overall perspective on who he is in the building. Just like I don't know that throw to Miles Price changed their opinion. Like they know who he is. They're working with him. They're going through this process. But from a larger conversation standpoint, isn't there something to gain in that?
Okay. Let me give you a loose comparison to this.
Okay. You better make it super loose.
Very loose. It's going to be very loose and very flaccid. Okay.
Okay.
So
what is wrong with you? Flaccid? I think that's the most. I don't think anybody's.
Listen, it's late.
We're gonna
get a long day.
What a horrific word. Okay, give me your.
It's a very uncomfortable word, which I love. I love uncomfortable words.
What a cool piece of information about you.
Let me give you a little flaccid take here, okay? See if it does anything for you.
God, why did
Blair Walsh.
Why am I giving my season to this show?
Because you love it, Cy. You love it.
Yeah, I do.
Blair Walsh, okay? All right, refocus. Blair Walsh. He misses that kick against the Seahawks. He goes wide left, okay? Playoff moment, huge implications. We all know the KOC term of weightiness of that moment, right? That was a heavily weighted, stressful moment, and he didn't rise up to the occasion. Do you think anybody looked at him the next season and preseason and were like, yeah, see him go out there? He was perfect. In those 3 preseason games, he was perfect. We're good. We're good to go. No, everybody said, man, that's awesome. We know he's a good kicker, but he can't redeem himself from that one kick until he gets into another game-winning situation in the regular season or in a playoff game. That's the only way that he can redeem himself. It doesn't matter if he makes every freaking kick in weeks 1 through 8. When we get down into crunch time in December and in the playoffs, that's when everybody perks up and like, hey, remember that kick he missed last year? This is a chance to redeem himself. So I know that's a big comparison to what we're talking about with
because
McCarthy.
It is preseason to preseason.
But I know, but it's not the type of game where you come back and say, yep, he figured it out. I now gain trust that he's turned the corner. I don't think that there's no turning of the corner in a successful third preseason game against all of the backups.
And that's not even what I'm saying. I think you're right. I'm not saying turning the corner. I'm just saying like the competitor in me that like I would want to like you would
Well,
have
sure. I think
to
JJ wants to go out there and redeem
you'd
himself, but I
have to
don't think it's going to
staple me to a
mean
locker.
anything.
I would want to go. Give me the throw again. Give me it 10 times. I'm gonna nail it
Yes,
10 times.
correct. If you miss the game-winning free throw, you're like, "Damn it, give me the ball again." Like
Yeah.
next game, I'm going to nail all the free throws. I understand where you're coming from. I just think that from a big picture standpoint, completely meaningless.
Yeah. Well, and that brings me to this point, which is, can we just have a moment of like calm honesty about the JJ divisiveness? Because I think the fan base, there's you see a lot of people, and it's both ends of the spectrum. You have people who are like, put him on a boat, ship him out into the ocean, and then sink the boat. And then on the other end, you have people like the organization failed, KOC can't teach him. Man, blow the stadium up. You're like,
Yeah.
and there's just this wide array of reactions. And people, listen to me. Here's what it is: we have not had a franchise quarterback for 48 years. Fran Tarkenton retired in 78, I believe. Somebody who's old who doesn't like my performance will fix that for me in the comments. But my dad will text me tomorrow, be like, "You
Yeah, leave it to your
dipshit.
dad. Yeah.
Learn the
Yeah.
correct years." But we haven't had a franchise quarterback in nearly 50 years. And JJ is the highest drafted quarterback in franchise history. Everybody was really excited for him. And I think all these people, I do think there was a small chunk of people that were like, I don't like the pick. But for the most
Yeah.
part, the larger fan base was like, man, it's possible. We've got the coach. Look what he did with Darnold. Look what he did with Dobbs. Look what he did with Kirk. And now we've got this high end prospect. Like, finally, all this waiting, finally. And all these responses and all these angry comments and social media remarks and people at joint practices shouting, like, it's just the way different people's disappointments manifest. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying the JJ thing is over, like, but I'm saying when that throw happened, and I think the collective went, like everybody had to go, like, okay, it might not be never, but it's not right now. Even after the Kyler thing was announced, I think there were still people like, what's the plan? What's the plan? So can we just all admit that a lot of the anger coming from all over the places, we just wanted this kid to succeed, and we just wanted a franchise quarterback, and we put all those expectations there, and now we're all processing that 3 seasons later we're not where we hoped we would be.
Yeah. I think there's always going to be the group of people that says, nah, 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 I told you so. Right. We knew what he was at Michigan.
Yeah,
Wasn't a believer then, not a believer now.
for
You can
sure.
say that for every player. You can say that for Dallas Turner. You can say that for, let's say, Donovan Jackson. Like, there's always going to be a small group of people that just, they don't like him. They don't like the pick. They don't think it's a good fit. Right.
By the way,
Um,
sometimes those people are right and they don't like it because
yeah.
they know their stuff.
Right.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But I do think the disheartening thing about what's happening right now is I think there's a rather large Vikings fan base that felt exactly how you just laid it out. They felt like, this is it. We really like this kid. And he blew everybody's doors off when he first got onto campus. And he was like, he was at TCOPC and he was meeting people, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. Like, he's so charismatic. He's so engaging. Like, everybody was talking about, part of his scouting evaluation was he had that it factor. He had, of all the quarterbacks that were in the draft that year, they're like, man, that McCarthy, though, you might think that he has some warts physically, but man, you want a leader, you want a championship mindset, like, this guy's got it. So I think, in all fairness, people are probably now just coming to grips with the fact that, like, this relationship just might not work. And I use that term because I'm not giving up on JJ McCarthy the player. I
Mhm.
just think of right now, I think you look at this relationship between KOC's offense, the organization, the fan base, the totality of everything that's included, and it just seems like he needs a fresh start. It just seems like, man, we wanted it so bad, and everybody feels like it's kind of slipping through their fingers a little bit. And so I think that's where some of the frustration comes from. I don't think anybody's necessarily mad at him or mad at the organization. I think they're just like kind of disappointed that, like, oh, man, it's not going the way we all hoped it would go because of all the things that you laid out. We're so desperate for a franchise quarterback.
Well, and we can bring this thing full circle because I think one of the responses to that, I've got a good friend that was messaging with me earlier today, and he's like, I just don't get it. Let the kid, he's only had 10 starts. Let him
Mm-hmm.
develop, let him play for a couple years. And I totally understand that. But I think I've never been in a locker room, so you could provide insight on this. But that guy that we were talking about at the beginning of this episode, who's 27 and at the very,
Mm-hmm.
very peak of his powers, you went up to him last year and you went up to Christian Darrisaw. And Blake Cashman, by the way, you want to talk about peak of their powers? Blake Cashman looks like the best version of Blake Cashman by miles.
Yes.
Van
Mm-hmm.
Ginkel looks incredible. Brian O'Neill's been around for a while. Aaron Jones, like when you say to some of these guys, like, hey, we need another year. We need another year. We want to risk another year and let the development happen. And it might go great, but it might not. They go, well, hey, I'm 27. Hey, I've got one year left. Hawkinson goes, I don't know if I'm going to be here in 2 seasons. That is, I think there is a complexity to these decisions where some of us want, let him develop, let him get 2 good seasons. Well, he unfortunately walked into a really good team. So this moment we've arrived at is more complex than that because you have a lot of people who've poured their heart and soul into their own individual efforts to arrive at this moment for them and their teammates. And I don't think it's as easy as just saying to all of them, like, second year in a row, you're in your prime. We're gonna go
Mm-hmm.
this way. You know?
I know. I think all of that is very well said. I think maybe we didn't realize, or maybe the answer is we did realize that we have a really talented roster and there is a window.
Yeah.
If people are looking at a window of opportunity to really do this thing, you're checking the boxes, it sounds like, with all the coaching staff. You're checking the boxes with a lot of the skill positions, where they're at in their age. Um, you pretty much set your defense to be a top 5 defense. I don't think there's an expectation that's lower than that. Is it? I
Right.
mean, I
Well,
know that we have some questions at cornerback and a little bit at safety, but let's come on, man. No defense is perfect. No defense has all pro people at every level of the defense. It just doesn't work like that. So I mean, a top 5 defense is the expectation. So you throw that in there. You feel like you've got some competent running backs with this new running game, all those things that we've talked about for over and over again. So yes, I do feel like there's an impatience that you have to put in the equation of, our time is kind of now. We got a 1 or 2 year window and we don't really have time to wait on this young kid to go through, some growing pains and then expect him to be a championship level quarterback. It just seems like it's too big of a mountain to climb.
yeah, and I'll end with this. I'll say that because I'm more on the he could still be like, go put him back on the Jordan Love track. I'm not at the maybe he needs a fresh start, but I'm also at the maybe he doesn't. Maybe you stash him. Maybe he grows. Like, I'm not eager to trade such an important asset willy nilly in the preseason. Um, but I think there are a lot of people who will poke back at what we're saying, going, "Man, you really think this roster? You think the time is now? These 2 years, you think this is good enough?" I would just say, how often do you have a top 5 defense? Like in the history of this organization, since the Purple
Mm,
People Eaters, you talk about not having a franchise quarterback. How many times have you had a top 5 and the last couple of years a top 3? In terms of EPA defense in the league, that we all think has a chance to be better this year. How often do you have that? I think the O line is going to be really good if they're healthy. I know not everybody's
mm-hmm.
bought into that, but how often has this team had a peak O line? And how often do you have a Hall of Famer as a future Hall of Famer as one of your main weapons. Like, maybe it doesn't go to the mountaintop. Maybe it doesn't work, but like, you can't not take a shot on that. You can't not take your hardest swing when you have those things. So this whole conversation about like, you really think all this, I don't know. I don't know. But I know that with that stuff, you have to swing. You have to throw your hardest punch and see where it lands. Because I'll tell you, when Sam Darnold came here, a lot of these same people who were saying that, it was 6.5, I think, was the over under that year. And
Yeah.
they went on that run. In KOC's first year, before they blew the doors off Green Bay in week 1, there was, I think it was 8.5, 9. So, we'll see. But you have those pieces, you throw the hardest punch you can, and you see what lands.